Malcolm X, one of the most articulate exponents of the black Muslim philosophy, has said of your movement and your philosophy that it plays into the hands of the white oppressors, that they are happy to hear you talk about love for the oppressor because this disarms the Negro and fits into the stereotype of the Negro as a meek, turning the other cheek sort of creature. Would you care to comment on Mr. X's belief?
Well, I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. I don't think of it as a weak force. But I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful direct action. This is what I tried to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance. Non-resistance leaves you in a state of stagnant passivity and deadened complacency, wherein non-violent resistance means that you do resist in a very strong and determined manner. And I think some of the criticisms of nonviolence, or some of the critics, fail to realize that we are talking about something very strong, and they confuse non-resistance with nonviolent resistance.
He goes beyond that in some of the things I've heard him say that this is deliberately your philosophy of love of the oppressor, which he identifies completely with the nonviolent movement, he says, this philosophy and this movement are actually encouraged by whites because it makes them comfortable. It makes them believe that Negroes are meek, supine creatures.
Well, I don't think that's true. If anyone has ever lived with a nonviolent movement in the South, from Montgomery on through the Freedom Rides and through the sit-in movement and the recent Birmingham movement, and see the reactions of many of the extremists and reactionaries in the white community, he wouldn't say that this movement or this philosophy makes them comfortable. I think it arouses a sense of shame within them often, in many instances. I think it does something to touch the conscience and establish a sense of guilt. Now, so often people respond to guilt by engaging more in the guilt-evoking act in an attempt to drown the sense of guilt. But this approach certainly doesn't make the white man feel comfortable. I think it does the other thing. It disturbs this conscience, and it disturbs this sense of contentment that he's had.
And that was the words of the great Martin Luther King, talking about Malcolm X. And you see how the reporter in that interview, as he tried, as the other reporter did, and I played the excerpt about King talking about Muhammad Ali, he was trying to pit them against each other. But in actuality, you saw how cool King handled that question and answer, how he answered it, and how he answered the Muhammad Ali question. But that's what they tried, and they still try to do. Many reporters try to pit one black person against another. But that's a story in itself. But anyway, I hope you're enjoying our tribute here to the legendary, the one and only Martin Luther King Jr. Before that excerpt, we did the Duke Ellington's interpretation of his composition that he created from the suite, The Three Black Kings, and that was Martin Luther King. And featuring on alto sax on that was Jimmy Heath. And Jimmy Heath's son just passed recently, that being Entombed, James Entombed. And I'm going to do a tribute about Entombed in the future because that's just amazing. But I hope you enjoyed that, that classical composition. And the Three Kings again, that was Melchior, King Solomon, and Martin Luther King Jr. And before that, we did 245's rare songs about Martin Luther King. First, we did the first one was Robert Chapman, the ballad for Martin Luther King. Then I began with James Chapman in memory of Dr. Martin Luther King. Hope you enjoy that on the Root and Root Show. As we do continue our tribute here, and I'm gonna play right now what King said to his daughter about why she couldn't go to an amusement park in Atlanta. So let's hear that on the Root and Root Show.
Funtown, USA. Dr. King now relates an experience bemoaning the injustice of bigotry upon the heart of a little Negro child. He explains the evils of segregation to his daughter of adolescent age.
My little daughter loves to ride to the airport with me. She says to me so often, "Daddy, you just go over and over and over again." And so one of the ways she consoles herself in the fact that her daddy has to be away so much is to ride to the airport whenever I'm going in or coming back into town or going out of town. And she can do it if she isn't in school. And as we pass on the expressway going to the airport in Atlanta, we pass by what is known as Funtown. Now, this is an amusement center where little children go to play and where they go for recreation, something like Disneyland and something like the very fine amusement centers across the country for young people. And as we pass Funtown so often in the car, she would look over to me and say, "Daddy, I want to go to Funtown." Well, I could always evade the question when we were going by in the automobile because we were passing by and I could jump to another subject. And I didn't want to have to tell my little daughter that she couldn't go to Funtown because of the color of her skin. But then the other day we were at home, and like most children, she likes to look at television, and she was looking at television, and they were advertising Funtown, and she ran downstairs and said, "Daddy, you know I've been telling you I want to go to Funtown, and they were just talking about Funtown on the television, and I want you to take me to Funtown." And oh, I stood there speechless. How could I explain to a little 6-year-old girl that she couldn't go to Funtown because she was colored? I had been speaking across the country talking about segregation and discrimination, and I thought I could answer most of the questions that came up, but I was speechless for the moment. I didn't know how to explain it. Then I said to myself, I've got to face this problem once and for all. And I took her and called over. And my wife was sitting on the other side of the table, and I took my little daughter and told her to have a seat on my knees. And she jumped up in my lap, and I looked at her and I said, "Yolanda, we have a problem." I said, "You know, some people don't do the right things and they are misguided. And so they have developed a system where white people go certain places and colored people go certain places." And I said they have Funtown like that so that they don't allow colored children to go to Funtown. And then I looked at her at that point because I didn't want her to develop a sense of bitterness. I didn't want her to grow up with a sense of hatred and bitterness in her heart. And so I had to rush on and say, "But now all white people aren't like this. There are some white people right here in Atlanta who would like for you to go to Funtown, and there are some all over the country who are right on this issue. Still, there are those who have been misguided." Then I looked down into her eyes, and I said to her at that point, and I saw tears flowing from her eyes at that point, I said, "Yoki, even though you can't go to Funtown, I want you to know that you are as good
as anybody who goes into Funtown. And I want you to know, Yoki, that some of us are working hard every day to get Funtown open and to get many other places open. And I say to you that in the not too distant future, Funtown and every other town will be open to all of God's children because we're going to work for it. We shall overcome someday.
It was on the 4th day of April, 1968, God called another great American from earth to his kingdom away. This is a tribute to you, Dr. Martin Luther King, from the Swan Silvertone Singers, as we gather around and sing. We will pray.